ilitoa unabii katika nchi ya Iran, nimeona shambulio naombea katika jina la Yesu.
So we begin with the breaking news from Iran, and the scientist believed to be at the very heart of the country's nuclear program has been killed in an attack east of the capital, Tehran. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was associated with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and was sanctioned by the US in 2008. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has described the killing as murder and said terrorists are responsible. He says there are indications of Israel playing a role, although he did not provide any evidence of that. Israel has refused to comment. Let's go straight away to Asad Beg in Tehran. And Asad, beginning to be able to piece together what took place here. What more do we know?
Well, the confirmation came via the Defense Ministry in a statement. Now, they said that Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, came under attack alongside his guards by terrorists. He was seriously injured, taken to hospital, and medics were unable to save his life, and he died today. Now, they gave their condolences to the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and the nation. Now, some of the news outlets here, the semi-official ones, have given a bit more detail. They said that there was a sound of an explosion and an exchange of gunfire. They also said 3 or 4 assailants were killed in that exchange. Now, another news agency linked to the Revolutionary Guard, they said that a truck was used to block his car. That truck then exploded, and he died. This attack actually took place at 2:30 local time. Now, as you've said, Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has responded. He's the first official to actually point the finger in that tweet where he named Israel. He said that he has strong indications of Israeli involvement. We've also had advisor to the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei vowing a response to the attackers. We've had the head of the Revolutionary Guard saying that this is an attempt to stop Iran gaining new sciences. And he was Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was a very senior figure in the nuclear program and the missile program, and this will be a major blow to Iran.
Yeah, we don't know who was responsible, of course, but why would people have wanted Mohsen Fakhrizadeh killed?
Well, there was an assassination attempt on him back in 2010, and actually in November 2010, another nuclear scientist, Mahdi Shahriri, was assassinated. Now, there have been attempts on nuclear scientists before, and Iran sees it as an attempt to slow down or damage their nuclear program. In fact, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh the IAEA had wanted to interview him, but Iran had stopped any interview of him. In 2018, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had claimed that Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was head of Iran's nuclear. He said he was the head director of Iran's nuclear weapons program. Again, these are high-ranking scientists and officials. In fact, there was no picture available of him until 2018, and his life is relatively secret. He had armed guards, from what we understand, but also a very, very senior figure. The Defense Ministry has said that he was the head of innovation and research at the Defense Ministry. He was had also been an officer in Iran's Revolutionary Guard. And again, this is a blow to Iran. But we have to take a look at where Iran is now in terms of that 2015 nuclear deal. Donald Trump pulled the United States out of that deal, imposed sanctions on Iran, and Iran has been reducing its commitments to that deal, and they've had a phased step back. And most recently, they've increased their stockpile of enriched uranium and have centrifuges in that Natanz nuclear facility, where they have started feeding gas into, and that was confirmed by an IAEA report. And all this in that context, and with the context of the tensions in this region, this is very alarming news, and will be a surprise to many Iranians inside Iran here.
Asad, thanks for that. Asad Beg there in Tehran. Well, as Asad was just referring to, between 2010 and 2012, Tehran accused Israel and the United States of carrying out targeted killings of 4 Iranian scientists. First up, the renowned physicist Masoud Ali Mohammadi was killed when a remote-control bomb went off outside his home. That was in January 2010. Tehran hanged a 24-year-old Iranian for the killing, accusing him of being an Israeli intelligence agent. In November of that year, nuclear scientist and engineer Majid Shahriyeh was killed. Attackers on motorbikes attached bombs to his car as he drove to work. And in July 2011, the nuclear scientist Dariush Rezai-Nejad was killed in front of his home in the capital. And that was after two gunmen on motorcycles opened fire. And then in January of 2012, Mustafa Ahmadi Roshan was killed after a bomb was attached to his car. He supervised his apartment at the Natanz uranium enrichment facility. So let's explore this further. We can bring in Adnan Tabatabai, I should say, in Bonn, in Germany. He's a policy consultant on Iranian affairs. So those killings that we've just listed there, they took place between 2010 and 2012. Now we have this 8 years on. What's your assessment of what's happened here?
I strongly believe we need to call it what it is. It's actually short of a military invasion. This is how war on Iran can take place in the year 2020. We have had in January this year the assassination of General Haj Qasem Soleimani, which took place on Iraqi soil, and now we have this targeted assassination on Iranian soil. Obviously, we don't know yet who is behind this, but of course, given the past 1 or 2 or 3 weeks and the many trips also that U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had into the region, there is a lot of indication, but at the same time, a lot of speculation about Israel being behind it. So, of course, on the one hand, we should call it a war on Iran, but at the same time, not draw conclusions too early.
Of course, yes. It does, though, come at a time when tensions have been very high between the United States and Iran, and the 2015 nuclear deal being brought into focus. Donald Trump has raised the stakes, hasn't he?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's and I would also really point to the people around Donald Trump. For Donald Trump himself, it's difficult to imagine why he would want further escalation with Iran, but let's think of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, his very, very ideological approach towards the region, and giving something to his allies in the region, in particular Israel. That's why that would make sense. But again, I mean, we will obviously have to wait and see. But the type of operation very much would link to an Israeli intelligence operation.
Yes, we have to emphasize we do not know, of course, who's responsible. What's your sense? We've had some reaction out of Iran already. What's your sense of how they may react sort of physically?
What I have been observing in the past months, and actually even throughout the Trump presidency, is that the Iranian side has understood very well that the U.S. approach is meant to either drag Iran from an extremely weakened position to the negotiating table, or to drag Iran into committing a big mistake that could lead to an all-out war. And I think this latter aspect is important here, that some sort of provocations that can happen through some cyber attacks, media smear campaigns, some operations in Iraq or Syria is one thing, but now an operation that has been carried out in Tehran. And I would expect Iran not to respond immediately, but to find a strategy to do that at a much later stage, and maybe not in similar fashion, but to try it politically in the same way that the Iranian officials said the revenge for the killing of Qasem Soleimani would be to oust the U.S. from the region, rather than now attacking the U.S. Troops in the region, for example. So I would rather see it in this light.
Adnan Tabatabai, we appreciate your perspective on this. Thank you.
My pleasure.
On to Ethiopia, where the government has denied